Welcome back to the shop, friends, on a very cold and rainy Wednesday on the homestead. So I'm going to share with you some really cool old tools that you've probably not seen before. I was going through my granddad's things a couple days ago, and I came across these old boxes here. And what do you think I found when I looked inside? These old-fashioned adjustable bits. It kind of surprised me that Granddad had 3 of them. 2 of them were in the original boxes with all the paperwork, and then this one right here was just laying loose in the tool drawer, and someone has either broken or ground off the end. You know, what it would have originally been, the old style right there, and probably with the advent of new drills. So the question begs to be answered is, if these do these adjustable bits work as well as the traditional ones? Because how handy is that to be able to have a bit like this that will fit in your brace that you can adjust from 7/8 of an inch all the way up, according to the instructions here, 3-inch? I don't know that I'd want to do a whole lot of 3-inch holes with a bit and brace or brace and bit, but I think the smaller ones might be cool. So I thought what we might do is take a look at these, how they work, sharpen them up really quick, and do a test and see if indeed the adjustable bits cut as well as the standard ones. Now I've got a piece of red oak here and a piece of CVG fir, this one being soft, this one being the hardwood. We'll do a little test and we'll see what's what. Let's take a look at this here together and see if we can figure out how this works. Okay, so what we have here is we've got our spur. Now that's going to go in the center, and what's a little bit different about this one is it's only going to be cutting on one side. So I guess we could probably expect it to cut as half as fast as a normal bit, being that these here are going to be cutting on both sides. Stands to reason. I guess there's always a trade-off for the convenience of things. So if we look right here, we have a whole bunch of marks. Looks like kind of a sunburst there. Each one of these marks, according to the instructions, it's a 1/16 of an inch. So if you can look right there, there's a tiny little mark on there, and these need to be lined up perfectly. So if we put it here in the smallest hole that this will drill will be a 7/8. 7/8, 15/16, 1 inch, 1 1/16, 1 1/8, so on and so forth, right there. So we've got the main hole sizes kind of preset there. So we've got a 1 inch, and then we've got a 1.5 inches. So this will actually cut bigger than 1.5 inches. So we go 1.5 inches, 1.9 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.11 and 1.12 inches. So a 1 3/4 inch hole you can do with that one bit. That's a huge hole. Knock that burr off there. Now let's take that little stone and just give it a little polish it. A file is a pretty coarse. It's a little pretty coarse. Look how that's just shaving that off there. That's really good. A little coarse for precise drill bits. It's a good tool to get your shape established. But then you always want to finish that off with a stone. Let's drill some holes here. So I'll put a piece of plywood down. We'll start with the softwood, the fir. We'll put the plywood down there so that we don't drill into our bench. And we'll clamp this down. So now watch, remember those little spurs on the sides? Watch what happens. So the screw will pull the bit down in. I'll put a little upward pressure. And as soon as those will come into contact, see how they that first one made a mark right there? What that does is that goes around there and that severs the grains of the wood, severs the fibers, so that when you really start putting the coals to it, you don't tear out and have a ragged hole. So the object would have been for the traditional carpenter to have a very precise hole. And there we have right there. So you can see before we even started making a cut in the wood, we have a very clean circle around there. And if you look in the old tool catalogs, there were half a dozen different varieties of these drills, for anywhere from like rough carpentry, like or maybe what an electrician would use to drill ragged holes quick and dirty through a stud, versus a fine cabinet maker. But when they're sharp like this, they make beautiful holes, and they're very efficient. They go through so quickly. So we're going to look at the entrance and the exits. I can feel I went through there. Now again, as we always say, if you want to have a clean hole on both sides, you put it down in a piece of wood. That way it won't tear out when it goes to the other side. But that's pretty good right there. This wood is notoriously unforgiving, the CVG fir. It is so fragile because it is soft. We have a little bit of tear out right there. Let's switch over to the adjustable. I set the bit to 7/8, so it's the same as the other one. Now we're only going to be cutting from one side on this one. So it should, that spur should, there it goes, comes into contact, goes around. The angle is more aggressive. I can feel it. It's definitely wanting to take more wood out. Look at the big gnarly chips. It's kind of a big rough tool. All right, we're through. We can clearly see here that it's not even close. Look how clean those edges are. A couple soft spots, or a couple spots right there tore out. That could be just, maybe I haven't got it sharpened properly, but this one here that's not very nice at all. That's pretty crude. That's not something you'd ever want for furniture making. If you were gonna drill that hole and put a dowel in there, you know, all those little flakes, those things will just break off, and you're gonna have a really ugly surface there. So that's not near as good. Oh, that's a lot harder to drill, no doubt. This is, oh yeah, the oak is a tough wood. They said it'll drill an 1.5-inch hole, or a 3-inch hole in one of the instructions with they had the extra bit that comes with it that sticks out further. I'd like to see the dude that can drill a 3-inch hole with a bit and brace in oak. I wouldn't want to arm wrestle with him or meet him in a dark alley. This is all I can do to get through this. I'd have to say 1 inch is a bit ambitious for drilling a hole in oak with a brace. All right, let's see how this does. So it's not as coarse. Just to push really hard. Are we through? Well, that didn't take very long. Actually went pretty, oh yeah, I was through some time ago. So there was really no comparison there, but looking at these, does this look bigger to you? This looks bigger to me. And I was super careful when I set that on that mark, and when I look at it now, it almost looks like it slipped. And I think it slipped a little bit on the front side, or the first hole I did as well, if I measure these guys. Because you can see it's off just a tiny bit on that notch there. Can you see that? That was perfect when I started with it. This hole here, of course, we have is exactly our 1 inch, and this one here on the adjustable, it's a little smidgen over there, isn't it? Just the tiniest bit right there. But how does it look overall as far as cleanliness? This is not perfect by any means. I think that the spurs on these are they could be a little bit coarse, because that's what's pulling the bit down in there, those cuts. And I've seen some of the ones that were maybe made for real fine precision work, cabinet work, and different things, had a little bit, maybe a bit of a finer screw on them, so they would go in slower. And then something that you needed just to do quick and dirty would have a very aggressive screw on it. And I don't know where these fall. I've always kind of thought that these were kind of an in-betweener, a good all-arounder. But it's not great. We've got some little bit of tear out there and a big chunk right there. That would be pretty disheartening if you were working on something that was really fine. This one here is really nasty, but it's not as bad as the one on the fir. But I couldn't push down hard enough, and I stripped out that spur, and it would no longer pull itself through, and at this angle I didn't have the strength to get all the way through it. So Yeah, so that's kind of interesting and kind of what I thought, to be honest. All right, so what did we learn here? Well, here's the thing. It just goes back to the multi-tool deal. A multi-tool is not very good pliers, not very good screwdriver, not very good knife, but it will do the things. You can kind of get it done. And a lot of this stuff. Let's take a look at it from the perspective of the manufacturer. Back in the day, today's the same way, even way worse now. Both of these are made by the Irwin company, right? So you make a super high quality set of bits for a carpenter. It's going to last him probably his whole life and multiple generations. Well, the problem with that, the good side is you build a good product and you get a good reputation and you have guys that want to buy them and you can, but when you make something so good, there's no reason for anyone to ever buy any more, right? That's why the built-in obsolescence that we have now. Perfect example, my grandfather had an old refrigerator. He must have bought that thing in the early 50s. And it was the refrigerator in their house forever. And then, they, as time, moves on, they wanted to get a bigger refrigerator because it was kind of a small, one of those old small round ones. So he put it out in the shop and it sat out there and ran forever. He would keep soda and different things and candy bars for the kids when we came over. I remember the smell of it when it opened up that door. Well, a few years ago, the power company put out a letter and they were saying, we're having a contest. We're trying to get these old appliances, these old refrigerators out of people's houses because they're so inefficient. They use a lot of power and the new ones are just so much more efficient. And that sounds good in when you hear that, like, oh yeah, if it uses less power, that's fine. Let's upgrade it. And so the contest was, if you have the oldest one, then you will win. So we called it. It was a prize of some sort or something like that, $1,000 or something. So we called in, and Granddad was excited. He was wondering if that old fridge, if he was going to win, and he was second. There was actually one that was like a year or two older than his. But what they did is they basically came and picked it up and cut the power cord off and hauled it off for free. When I think about that, I'm like, the refrigerators that we buy now, I think most people, I think of the experience that we have, they're designed to work about, what do you say, maybe 7 years, 10 years maybe on the high end. Even these expensive ones with the ice makers and the computers, they might even be less. And yeah, they're super efficient and they probably burn less, or use less power, no question, than the older ones. But when you have to replace one every 7 years, that's every 20 years, that's 2 or 3 units. Well, what's that over the course of a lifetime? How many refrigerators are you going to buy? And yet Granddad's was made in the 50s and it was still running perfectly all the way up until, what was it? I don't know, 2000? It sat out there and ran for 60 years or so. So where's the trade-off? Is it better to make something that has a little bit better quality, that lasts forever, or something that's super efficient with who knows? I don't know. But it comes back to the manufacturer. So they sell you these. You're never going to buy any more, so they have to come up with something else to get people to continue to buy things, telling you that you need them. So I would imagine maybe it was something like that. This was probably geared more towards a handyman or someone that didn't want to make a great investment in a full set, was just going to drill a couple holes, or just maybe something that you could just put in your tool belt and that would work for a variety of sizes. I mean, if you're just a plumber or an electrician and you're just knocking holes in studs to run pipe or electrical conduit through, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because it cut very aggressive, it cut very fast, but certainly not as good. So kind of interesting. It was an interesting test. I was looking at these and wondering if they really do have a place. I'm going to keep them just because they belong to my grandfather, but I wouldn't ever think that it would be a substitute for the original ones. But yeah, kind of interesting. I'd like to see the guy that could drill a 3-inch hole with one of these in hardwood, though. I'll bet they have a little bit bigger brace than I was using. All right, thanks for watching. Don't forget to click the thumbs up if you enjoy these videos. We're going to be doing we got some forestry work and a whole bunch of stuff coming up. The snow is finally melted off. I don't think we have any snow left on our property, and we're anxious to get out and start doing some forestry work. So we'll be bringing you along for that as soon as we can get our health back. We still got that flu going on. So keep us in your prayers, and always appreciate everything. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Hi, baby. You got your drink? Wawa. Wawa? Wawa. Wawa.
whatever works for you.